Welcome to the Access to Innovators podcast, powered by the premier life skills university, High Point University.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jack O'Donnell, a sophomore from Avon, Connecticut, studying media production and pop culture. Today, I'm going one-on-one with Meridith Elliott Powell, the chair of the National Speaker Association and HBU's Business Growth and Leadership Expert in Residence. Ms. Powell, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to it, Jack.
Well, thank you. Can we start title? You're the chair of the National Speaker Association. How is managing like big outgoing personalities like that? What's that like?
Yeah, so well said, right? Outgoing personalities. If you ever come to any convention at the National Speakers Association, that's what you see is a lot of ego, a lot of energy, and a lot of personality. It's really interesting. You know, I really feel like I'm driven by purpose with it. Mm-hmm. I think that what speakers do is so critically important. I mean, we give people hope. We give them strategies. We give them ideas. So while managing that is a challenge because typically speakers are not business people, it's important work and it's work that matters. And it's really a field that's growing. You know, a lot of people are feeling the need or the desire to get into the public speaking arena. And we use an NSA to really help people learn how to do that. So it's a fascinating and a challenging role.
Interesting. I liked what you said about use speakers like share and communicate ideas. And I like how the idea you seem to center around is like uncertainty.
Yes.
And we kind of adapt that a lot with a growth mindset. And I'd be interested to see how those two ideas kind of come together and how an HPU student could adapt what you teach about understanding uncertainty and bring it into what we teach here.
You know, it was one of the very first things when I showed up here on campus was I saw a growth mindset. And I thought the same thing, the connection to uncertainty. And I think if I had to really narrow it down to one phrase, I'm really fascinated in life that how perspective is power. You know, and a growth mindset to me means that you see opportunity when opportunity is there, but you also see opportunity in obstacle or disadvantage, meaning that I got into studying uncertainty because every leader I was talking to was talking about uncertainty as if it was a negative. And I thought, why do we believe that not knowing what is going to happen always leads to a negative result? And what could happen if you changed that? How far could you go if you believed that uncertainty led to opportunity? And that's really a growth mindset. I mean, Jack, we can't change what's going to happen to you in life, good or bad. But right before we started this interview, you said something that was so growth mindset related. You were talking about, I asked you about running track, and you said you were going to run this year, but you had some things happen that didn't allow it, but it led to other opportunities. And you'd be amazed in life how many people are frozen by the obstacle that they can't see the opportunity. And building that muscle to believe that even when the obstacle looks like it's going to stop you, there can be opportunity on the other side.
Well, thank you so much for that compliment.
Yeah.
That means a lot to hear.
Yeah. Well, no, you did it without thinking, and it's so it means it's innate with you. But I guess what I want the leaders to understand is even if you're not blessed to be born with it, you can learn it, and that is, to me, again, perspective is power. If you can shift that mindset and begin to believe that opportunity lies in even your greatest obstacle, you have most of the challenges in life kicked.
Yeah. I love that you said like you can learn it.
Yes.
Because most people aren't born geniuses in physics or writing or anything, but how can like what you teach with uncertainty feels like we can learn how to become a genius of adaptability and adjusting to life. Like how can we learn to do that? Yeah,
I love that phrase, genius of adaptability. I'm going to steal it from you. I will credit it for you when I use it on stages. But really, really well said. Well, you know, I think that far too often, even if you are blessed to be born with it, it kind of gets socialized out of you. I mean, you know, if you watch the news or you listen to a lot of people around you, blame is something that is okay in our society. And I feel like that's too bad because even if the things that have happened to you are unfair, just like it isn't fair what happened why you couldn't run, track this year. But if you get caught in the blame, you become a victim. And if you become a victim, it's the end of your story. So I think, number one, you have to be cautious of the messages that you're being told. Even if it is unfair what has happened to you, don't get caught in the trap of being victim. But I like to say something that you need to train your brain to find opportunity. I don't think that it is easy in the face of your biggest obstacles to move beyond those obstacles. But I think if you work at finding opportunity, you can get there. And I use something, I call it a relentless vision. If you came home with me to Asheville, North Carolina, and you got up with me in the morning, you would see that the very first thing is I read a little note card that has my vision on it. It's where I see my life, where I see my health, my business, and my finances a year from now. I read it at lunchtime, and I read it again before I shut down my office at night. And the reason I do it 3 times a day is because I'm trying to focus on teaching my brain to find what is positive rather than what is negative. So I'm almost like trying to undo all the negative comments I get or learnings I get all day long.
That's very interesting. I like how it's like specific.
Yes.
Like that's good advice. Like it's not very vague. It's something anyone can do. And it's only a year out. Interesting.
Yeah.
So when do you update that? Like New Year's Eve? Or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when everybody else is celebrating the holidays right around December, I really take that time to kind of think about where I want to see my life a year from now. I mean, I have my big vision for 10 years out, but this one is more behavior, folks. Like, what are the things I want to do this year to improve my health? What are the things I want to do this year to improve my relationships? And the reason it's specific, I love that you noticed that, is that when I was younger, all I had was a business goal where I wanted to see my career. And at the age of 35, I got a promotion that came with the big office, all the country club memberships, and the big salary I wanted. But I realized I'd forgotten about my life. Like, I didn't want to live in that city. I didn't want to work in that role. And when you cast a vision, you need to think about all the aspects of your life and cast your vision so that I really believe any level of success you can have it, but don't cut it off at just one part. So often we set a business goal. And if you want to be really successful, you need to have a health goal. You need to have a finance goal. Really need to have relationships goal. What kind of love and support do you want in your life? All of that will fuel the business goal.
So you're saying when that happened, your vision really changed
It
there.
really changed.
And you broke it down into all those aspects?
Yeah, because I can remember it like it was yesterday. I remember sitting at my computer right after, everybody had awarded me with a promotion, and I thought, I don't want this. I don't want to live here. I don't want this life. And it was the most difficult decision I ever made, but I passed it up. I moved back to Asheville, North Carolina, and I just thought, I don't have any idea how I'm going to get what I want in life because I just blew my biggest opportunity. Everybody thought I was crazy, and I was back to ground zero. I mean, I'd lost my job and everything, but I just started crafting that vision, and my mind found a way to get there. And it's funny now, Jack. I mean, if I had taken that job, I would be far less successful than I am right now. So I think that you have to know what you want. It doesn't have to be crystal clear, but then you have to take action every day to get there. But your mind is really powerful. It'll find a way to achieve what you want. I believe impossible is something we blow past when you have a vision.
Yeah. I like that. It's a great example of like how you embraced uncertainty. Like you've practiced what you've preached. So you embraced that, but you didn't just take an uncalculated risk. Like you knew you were safe in doing that. Like how do you differentiate, a safe uncertainty and dangerous uncertainty?
Great question. I think you really have to know yourself, and you have to count on yourself. I mean, I wouldn't have taken that risk if I didn't know that I was disciplined and I was resourceful, and my ego was enough in check that if I had to wait tables again, I could wait tables again. So would I have taken that risk if I'd been married at the time with 4 kids? No. I've got 4 kids I've got to feed and I've got to put in college and things. I was at an age where I was able to take that risk. So I think you have to watch those selves. Now, let me do the antithesis of that, because I don't care what point you are in life, you're never stuck. If I'd have been married at the time, been the sole support in the family, and had 4 kids, I would have taken the job, but I still would have started to work on my dream. I wouldn't have just given up and said, I have to do this for the rest of my life because I've got to put my children through college. So, you've got to measure, you've got to measure what you've got. But I wish I had written the vision I wanted at 20 rather than waited and put myself into that box. It would have been smarter then.
Now, what is a vision to you? I mean, in some of your interviews, you talked about purpose in life and finding meaning from work and how that comes with adversity, like you were saying, and the feeling of overcoming something, gives you like purpose. But how do you know if you have a vision versus a goal versus a plan? Like what's...
Yeah, great question. It's a great question because I thought about it a lot and I feel like I was confused on it for years. Yeah. So if you look at my vision, I feel like my vision is really, my overall vision is really more of a purpose and a mission driven. I'm very mission driven to help people learn to turn uncertainty to competitive advantage. I mean, if I could finish my career or leave this world having shifted mindsets for people to believe that obstacle does not stop you, it propels you. And I think that my personal belief that is in life, we have gotten too much where people are allowed to make excuses for not being successful. And the only reason I hate that is because I think the moment that you make an excuse, you give away your power. And when you give away your power, you give away all your opportunity to succeed. So I love to just say everything's my fault, because if everything's my fault, I can fix it. If it's your fault, I can't fix it. So that's my overall vision. It's really very mission and purpose driven. Mm-hmm. But when I think about, the vision that I have for 1 year, it's probably a little more goal related. These are the behaviors I want to do day in and day out. I'm very behavior driven rather than result driven, because behaviors, again, I can control. Like I want to be in the best shape of my life, but I can't necessarily control that outcome. But every day I can control what I eat. I can control what I eat, how I exercise, the things that I read or the information that I take in. So those to me are kind of the difference. And while I think goals are very important, you have to find what drives you in life. What difference do you want to make? Because my motivation comes from the fact that I've seen what happens to people when they believe that uncertainty leads to opportunity. And I've seen what happens to people when they let uncertainty stop them. And I really believe I can help people.
Okay, interesting. I like how it's what I'm picking up is that your goals seem to be almost like moments you can reach.
Yes.
Whereas your purpose, it doesn't end. Like when you're saying you've got that job, if that was your goal, you had achieved it. Now where do you go?
Exactly.
I like how your mission doesn't seem to ever really end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always bigger, because I think I think motivation in life comes from progress. I think far too often we're looking for perfection, or people overthink things before they move. And I think you're just trying to make incremental improvements every single day. And then you end up blowing past any goal you ever would have set.
True. I thought it was really interesting. You were talking about in one interview that you work for LinkedIn Learning, correct?
Yes.
So you record, like they record you and you give like talks to people? Yeah,
it's so a couple of years ago, LinkedIn approached me. They reached out to me based on my following on LinkedIn, and they had just bought a company called lynda.com. And this is so interesting. A woman got this idea years ago, and this is how long ago. It was VHS recordings, right? And she decided she and her husband were just going to make recordings and build this company. And they built lynda.com. And LinkedIn Learning came in and bought it. LinkedIn bought it and called it LinkedIn Learning. And they decided to do educational courses, whether they were in the arts, whether they were in technical, whether they were in business. And the idea was that all the things that we want to learn, could you put them in small courses? Could you make them in bite-size learning? And every course that I record for LinkedIn, whether it's on soft skills for sales professionals or how to build a business strategy, I work all in the business arena. Every course is no more than an hour long, and they're made up of 12 to 16 videos, and no video is more than 3 minutes long. So LinkedIn was really on the cutting edge of realizing that learning was going into a micro learning phase, that people do better when they can take things in small bits. And so I think I'm up to 18 courses now and over 600,000 learners worldwide. And it's been fascinating because a lot of the learners that I tap into live in countries where education is not as available to them. And so you'll get an email from somebody in India who is trying to break into the business world and just took one of your sales courses, and will reach out to you with pretty good English, telling you how much they got to it. But they translate them into all different languages. And then during COVID, they unlocked a lot of the courses and made them free, really trying to help people, learn. So, yeah.
Lots of it is the power of the internet, right?
Yes,
to be able to help so many people.
Yeah, it's really, really, really incredible, and really, really a fascinating way to learn how to reach people in different modalities. I mean, there's so many ways to learn today. And what I find is people who do the best are combining all of them.
Yeah. And you said you did 18 different courses. Mm-hmm. And is the soft skills one still the best-selling one?
Yeah.
Wow.
It is the soft skills for, but what's interesting about that? I first recorded that one, I think, in 2016 or 17. They've had me update it 3 times because the soft skills you needed to be successful in 2016 and 17 are not the same soft skills necessarily that we're using today. The other is that that in this high-tech world, and everybody thinks about learning technical skills, the reason that course is the number one seller for me is it's the number one thing CEOs are looking for. Yeah. Can people, am I hiring somebody who has empathy? Am I hiring somebody who can carry on a conversation? Am I hiring somebody who can critically think? Because there's skills that are definitely lost in today's world.
Yeah, we hear about it all the time. We call them life skills here on campus.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, they're so valuable. Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. In one interview, you were saying that you thought you had kind of seen those declines since COVID, maybe just from a lack of face-to-face. And how do you think they're starting to come back? Like, what do you think can be done to work on them in a phase where they're becoming more necessary and less abundant than ever?
If I think they're declining, and I think they're, I think this whole idea that people don't want to come back to work, and I think remote working is fabulous. If I could work from home a couple of days a week, but you have to go into the office, you have to see people, you have to connect people. If you sell, you can't sell 100% from a screen. There's something to be said for the connection and the relationship. And when I look at younger people and you think about wanting to advance your career, if your boss can't see you, if people can't connect with you, if you can't learn from people who are more skilled than you are, it's going to definitely be a challenge. So I think that they're on the decline. And what I think you can do to build them is to realize that's opportunity in the marketplace. First of all, if I had a child at home, mine are grown right now, but if I had a child at home, I would be teaching them the life skills. I'd be sending them somewhere like High Point University, because these are the skills that are critical. I mean, think about it, Jack. If I hired you to come to work in my company tomorrow, the job that I'm going to need you to do a year from now is going to be different. So if I hired you for technical skills, they're going to go out of date. And a soft skill is a growth mindset. It's a desire to learn and change. A soft skill is the art of communicating and connecting and being able to adapt. All skills that's really what you need to be going to college for and what you need to be learning, because the skills that we're doing in work today, I don't do anything near what I did 6 years ago in my company. My skill sets are changing. So I think those are the skills that you need to invest in. I was speaking behind a futurist in Baltimore, Maryland, and I didn't think a lot of what he said, but he said this, which I thought was really important. He said, critical thinking is one of the most important skills in the workplace today, being able to take a problem and analyze how to solve it. Yet it is a skill that's being socialized out of young people. They have a lot of other skills. But he said the difference between young people and somebody who's 60 or 70 years old is somebody who's 60 or 70 years old, when they were young, they spent a lot of time without parental or coach involvement. They would go outside and play all day, and you learn a lot of critical thinking skills when nobody's supervising you. But children today are supervised all day long. Understandably, the world's a different place, but they're not taught to think. And to me, that was really powerful, because I think adaptability and critical thinking skills come when you take on projects and you do them on your own. Just like right now, I'm sitting in a studio with all students. Nobody's supervising us. You all have to critically think how to make that successful. Those are going to be the valuable skills going forward.
Interesting. I I've heard a lot about how mentorship is so important, and I thought that was interesting because it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like a mentor kind of lets you go and it lets you sit on your own. Like you said, no one's sitting there kind of holding your hand, coaching you through things. I think that's interesting. And I like what you said about soft skills. I like how they sound more flexible, which is probably they're probably soft skills and not necessarily rigid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really interesting. And when you're talking about one of them, communication as a soft skill, it reminded me of something else you said in an interview where you said a lot of communication is like listening.
Yeah.
And people want to be understood, and that's how good communicators operate. And so I wondered how you did that as a public speaker, where you can't really listen to the audience. They can't really talk to you. So how do you still get that empathy across to them?
Yeah, what a great question. So first of all, I think listening is one of the most undervalued skilled. I mean, the world that we live in today, we are communicated to enough. I mean, people communicate to me on social media, people communicate to me on podcasts. Everybody is telling me what to do and how to do it. So when you think about communication, the power of communication is really in listening, because what people want is to be understood and they want to be heard. So as a public speaker, you're absolutely right. I'm on stage for an hour. I'm going to tell people something. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, people are talking to me all the time when I'm on stage. So first of all, I don't ever get on stage and talk about a subject that I think is important for the audience to hear. The reason I started talking about uncertainty was because back in 2016 and 17, as I was talking to customers, everybody was telling me they were worried about the uncertainty in the marketplace. So I just started to solve a problem they had. So from the very first time I take the stage, I'm not talking about what I think would be valuable for the audience. I'm talking about what the audience told me would be valuable for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important in business. The businesses that succeed are the ones who are solving a problem that customers have. I mean, I talk a lot about Uber, and Uber was invented because taxi cabs weren't listening to their customers. They were dirty, they were rude, they were expensive. All Uber did was build a company that solved those problems. The other is that when you're on stage, one of the reasons I never use slides when I'm on stage is because the audience will tell me what's important to them. If I'm listening to them, they'll tell me what's funny, or they'll lean in and they'll tell me what's interesting. Maybe I need to go deeper into that topic. So I think if ever you're speaking and you go so rigid on a topic, it's about you getting information across rather than paying attention to what the audience needs to hear. So I'm always ready to go longer on a story or shorter on a story or add an example based off what the audience tells me they value.
Interesting. So when you're speaking, are you more of an improv speaker then? You kind of leave things a little bit more fluid?
I know exactly, I have an outline and I know what I'm going to say and I know where I'm going to go, but I definitely pay attention. You know, it's just over speaking with a group of students about half an hour ago. And I had about 6 points I was going to make. And then right in the middle of it, I could see based on what they were interested in, I dropped 2 of them and went deeper in on my third because I thought that would be the one that would be most valuable. So I would say rather than improv, I feel like I'm a really present speaker. And by being really present, I can go where the audience needs to go. I had a coach tell me this years ago. She said, if you really listen to people and you're just really present, and you're doing a phenomenal job of this right now because you're really present with me as an interviewer. So you're not worried about your next question. You're listening to me and believing that your next question will bubble up. And that's why you're doing such a great interview, because you're just present. You're not going off a script. That's how you have to be with people. Like, you have all this knowledge you'll gain from college, and all of that is really valuable, and that's going to prepare you for anything in life. But if you're really present with people, the right next thing will come up.
Interesting. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today and coming to campus and talking with not just myself, but a bunch of students. We always appreciate when our in-residence people come around, and we're excited to have you join the team. I know I've learned a lot just from your one visit here, so I'm very excited to have you back more.
Well, thank you, Jack. It has been an honor to be here, and I can't tell you what an honor it is to be part of such an incredible university and such a wonderful group of students. So you've been phenomenal today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.